In the past 48 hours, things between Trinidad and Venezuela has taken a serious turn. Venezuela's vice president announced that they will be cutting all gas deals with Trinidad and Tobago. And this announcement came just hours after US military ships docked at Port of Spain, which is Trinidad and Tobago's largest dock. And just a couple hours after that announcement, Trinidad's very own Minister of Homeland Security made a post stating the mass deportation of illegal Venezuelan immigrants is seriously being considered at this time. Two governments, two decisions within a period of 48 hours. And everybody asking the same question. Why now? Why all of a sudden? Why did Venezuela pull out of an energy partnership that has been in place for years? Why is the US military moving assets into Caribbean waters? So let me talk about what's really going on, because what unfolding in front of us right now might just be World War III, the Caribbean arm. When US Navy ships made its way into Port of Spain, it wasn't for a friendly photo op. This was a strategic development. For months now, Venezuela's government, under the watchful eyes of President Nicolas Maduro, has been escalating this rhetoric. They have been sending threats to Guyana, claiming the oil-rich Essequibo lands as basically part of Venezuela's territory that was lost in battle or a territorial war some hundreds of years ago. And within those speeches were claims of mobilizing the Venezuelan military to reclaim what Nicolas Maduro and the Venezuelan government claims to be their land from way back when. There has also been talk online circulating from Venezuelan citizens, both living in Venezuela and who are illegally living in Trinidad, claiming Trinidad to be a part of Venezuela's larger landmass that was broken off due to tectonic shifts some 500 years ago. So if we want to play that game, how far we want to go back? Because we could play that game. So when the US started placing warships along these same disputed waters, it really wasn't by accident. It was to say, we hear and we watch it. But let's talk about why the US presence in these waters matter and why it's long overdue. If you live within any of these islands, you would know that these waters aren't what they used to be in the past. What used to be a normal, friendly fishing route has now turned into a narco-trafficking route, making it difficult for even fishermen to ply their trade. The Caribbean has become a corridor for massive drugs and arms trafficking. Everybody who living in Trinidad know exactly what does be going on. Because let me be honest, right? No fishing pirogue that fish in local Trinidadian waters need 400 horsepower engine to power that boat. I know no fish that you need 400 horsepower engines to find or to chase. These are high-speed, heavily armed vessels designed with the purpose of trafficking drugs and evading local coast guard. No local coast guard boat could basically catch one of these boats with 400 horsepower engines. And let me be clear, let me be honest about something, right? These men who doing these jobs, who driving these boats, they literally have nothing to lose. They have two choices. Either get caught and go to jail for the rest of their life, or get their cargo seized and then go back to the people who they now owe for that boatload of drugs that they lost. I don't really think that you could flag down a boat with 400 horsepower engines, and I don't think that these fellas are going to stop, be friendly, and hand over all the produce that they have with them. I don't think that's how it is be going. One of these boats was stopped recently. They actually stopped this boat and board it. And probably because it had 3 400 horsepower engines instead of the usual 400 horsepower engines. Now, when the US military finally intercepted this boat, here's the kicker. This was a partially submersible vessel, meaning only a little piece was on top and visible above water. When the US military boarded that vessel and they took all the occupants hostage, what they proceeded to find was, guess what? Not fish. Wow, that was a surprise, right? What they proceeded to find was 75,000 pounds of cocaine. You hear that right? That's 7,500, not 7.5. 75,000 pounds of cocaine in one vessel. Now remember, the reason that they get caught was because this is a 3-engine instead of the 4-engine. So how much the 4 engines is really push? If the small semi-submersible vessel hauling 75,000 pounds of cocaine, these are organized, violent cartels using military-grade equipment. Now, as we on the topic of boats and the vessels that they're using, right, we need to talk about the most controversial part of this whole thing between US and Venezuela, the airstrikes. And recently there has been a lot of airstrikes. By now we're up to about 8, probably 10. All these vessels that the US targeting are alleged smuggling vessels. And all the vessels that they strike on were taking the exact trafficking route that has become known to be the trafficking route. They tried flagging down these vessels, they tried stopping them, to no avail. These fellas not going to stop. These people who running these boats not going to stop. One of the vessels that were recently struck upon, and unfortunately all the occupants in the vessel passed away. 2 of the occupants of that vessel were Trinidadian nationals. And the story does go how the story does go. The families claim that these are very good boys and they won't in nothing. They are just humble fishermen who went to Venezuela to make a trip. I don't know any fisherman going in Venezuelan waters to fish because, that is illegal. We're not supposed to fish in their waters. But according to the family of these guys, they were just making a trip to Venezuela. They wanted anything wrong. Let me take a look at the interview with the family of these victims and see exactly what they had to say.
Donald Trump take a father, a brother, a uncle, and nephew from families. Donald Trump don't care what he do, you know. He just targeting one thing in Venezuela. And he's saying it's drug cartels. It's not that. It's not that. Donald Trump, you need to stop your shit. And stop killing innocent people. Where's he not cut? We want evidence. We want proof. There is nothing.
Nobody come and tell us nothing. All we're seeing is social media. People coming to put it out there. No police, nobody.
Now, if civilians getting caught in the middle of this, everyday fishermen who doing nothing wrong and have absolutely nothing to do with the narco trade, that is tragic. And that's not supposed to happen and shouldn't happen at all. But we really can't ignore the reality of what this is. I'll show you the boat that washed up on the shores of Trinidad after the whole airstrike. And you'll tell me whether or not you think this is a boat that somebody will use for fishing. Anybody with any kind of experience in boat and engine, look at this boat and tell me what kind of fish you're running with this. You literally moving faster than carrot and salmon on the water. Now, President Maduro didn't take this lightly. When the airstrikes started to get ramped up, he started to issue some more threats. Believe it or not, most of these threats were to Trinidad, not to the US, who actually doing the airstrikes. Basically, what President Maduro is saying is that he's going to mobilize his army and get things moving. If the US continue with their airstrikes, blowing up innocent fishing vessels and civilians, that he going to mobilize his foot unit and he going to start, they start testing out all the military grade weapons and parading them in the street and so on. But let me get one thing clear. When he said the US provoking Venezuela, he not saying that talking about you, the common citizen. He's saying that meaning the US provoking his status as a person on top of Venezuela right now, who controlling everything. We all know what happened with the last election, right? That is why more than half of Venezuela living either in Trinidad or Guyana, the 2 places that he literally want to take the land. So when President Trump saw that he decided to mobilize his army and start to get his army training, President Trump took to social media and he posted this video. Well, I believe that that's part of the reason that President Maduro cut gas deals with Trinidad and Tobago. He take that personally. And I guess that when he realized that the US using Port of Spain to dock their ships, all hell break loose. But Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister, Kamala Persad-Bissessar, clapped back instantly. And she was like, okay, that's the game you want to play? Homeland Security Minister, get a list of illegal immigrants that here in Trinidad right now, and let me start this thing. They're here long enough. They're here for about, 10 years now? Trinidad and Guyana, both of them for the past how much years have been trying to create a balance between the Venezuelan illegal immigrant problem and the need to protect our respective borders. But when the government of the country that the people we trying to give refuge to start sending threats, and within them threats talk about reclaiming our country as land that was once theirs, that shifts into a whole other discussion now. Now all these things that you feel is isolated incidents, the gas deal, the US ships docking, the illegal immigrants who had to go back now, you would think that they are isolated incidents, but they are not. They are all part of a bigger thing, which is basically a power struggle in the Caribbean. And in my honest views, the US here trying to stabilize the region right now, trying to not allow President Maduro to do what he did in Venezuela throughout the Caribbean, because that is basically his aim. His aim is to spread his reign of power far beyond Venezuela. He's trying to do that right now with the nearest countries. So Guyana and Trinidad, the two closest countries to him, he's trying to do that. And the US military here to try to prevent that from happening. So some people see the US military ships in our waters, and they know the first thing they're going to say is, hey, we don't want no international interference in Caribbean thing. But the fact of the matter is, what is the alternative? What would you rather? Would you rather US military ships on your borders, or would you rather the usual that we have? The non-stop narcotic trade that just coming through, that nobody can get a handle on. Because in my opinion, if the smaller countries, if our smaller countries like Trinidad and Tobago, like Guyana, like all these China islands cannot get a handle, we don't have the technology and the know-how to get this drug trade under control. They're literally outrunning us with boats. The government can't buy boats fast enough to chase these people. Why not look to a stronger power for help? That is no weakness. That is doing what you need to do to protect your borders and to protect your people from falling victim to literally what's going on in Trinidad right now. Trinidad has become a central hub for the drug traffic trade, an integral part, a stopping point, a trade-off point between islands before going wherever it needs to go again. Because the US military parked its ships in Port of Spain, that is causing a big uproar in the trade right now. It's literally making people who have investments within that trade nervous, on edge, ready to mobilize whatever means necessary to ensure that their power remains their power, if you get where I'm coming from. Again, like everything on this channel, this is just my 2 cents. This is just what I think. This don't have to be your views, and you don't have to agree with me. Whether or not you agree with me, let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think that the US presence in Caribbean waters is a good thing? Do you think that President Trump has an alternative motive against Venezuela and using Trinidad as a part of his ploy to get what he wants from Venezuela? Or do you think that for the first time in how many years, this is an active try to put a stop or to put a damper on the drug trade that has been plaguing this part of the world for the longest while? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. For them fellas reviews, it's Jeremy, and I will see everybody in the next one. Later.